So basically, the Nazis become popular, so popular that Hitler and his brown shirts feel like they can seize power in 1924 in the Beer Hall Putsch, but it doesn't work out. And hyperinflation has ended. The Dawes Plan renegotiates reparations payments that the German government has to make. And from 1925 to 1929, we enter this period known as the Golden Age of the Weimar Republic. The government is back on its feet. The economy is reorganized. A new currency is issued. And the Nazis basically disappear as a major political entity. They still are around. In 1928, for example, they get 12 seats in the Reichstag. And so 12 seats, not too many. There's hundreds in the Reichstag. But, of course, what happens that destroys that golden age of the Weimar Republic is the Great Depression. It begins in 1929 and it gets quite severe into the 1930s. This means there is bank failures. This means there is high unemployment. This means there's a lot of angry people. And once again, they're looking at the government that just 5 years earlier had gotten out of hyperinflation and said, this government, what's going on? Why aren't things better? And it's easy in this environment to blame people, to blame the Jews. Hitler argues they're part of this international conspiracy designed to hold down the Germans, to blame foreigners, to blame all these sorts of different things. Now, the Great Depression means that there is, for the middle class, those middle class people that are business owners or saving things, that just went through hyperinflation and lost all their savings because of that. For the middle class during the Great Depression, it's devastating again. And they're looking for something that will restore Germany in terms of their business, in terms of the economy. But the Great Depression also means that a lot of workers are angry and looking for better conditions. And so a lot of people are also being drawn to communism. And so the amount and support for communism grows, as therefore does the opposition to that communism. So whereas the amount of people who are communists is growing and the threat of a communist revolution seems to increase, the middle class will be looking for something to stop the communists. And so many middle class members will see Hitler and his brown shirts and these large nationalist groups as a way to stop the communists from seizing power, as a way to stop a revolution of the proletariat. Now Hitler uses propaganda to perpetuate his message. He's a master campaigner. He's a politician, right? The Nazis are a political party. And so in 1930, 2 years before they had 12 seats. In 1930 they have over 100 seats, 107 seats in the Reichstag. And then by 1932, they have 230 seats in the Reichstag. So in 4 years, you can see that their popularity increases, quite dramatically, from 12 to 230. And by 1932, the Nazis are the largest party in the Reichstag. So they gain their prominence to some degree, because they do have armed wings of their party, these sort of militant wings that are, groups of thugs beating up people, defending neighborhoods. But on the other hand, they come to power peacefully through this democratic process. They become the largest party in Germany through elections. Hitler is a master campaigner. He uses an anti-communist message, an anti-Jewish message, which taps into anti-Semitism in Germany, and a message against the Weimar Republic and against the Treaty of Versailles, blaming that for the reparations payments and all these things for making Germany so weak and poor. Hitler, of course, is using the latest technology. He's using radio to get his message across. He's getting film to get his message across. He is using microphones to be able to have large gatherings. He is flying around on airplanes so he can go from city to city to city very quickly. And so we really see the emergence of the modern campaign in the early 1900s in the United States as well as in Germany. And Hitler is a master campaigner. He goes around, he makes himself known. He has a distinctive look, cutting his mustache just to the middle, so he's got a distinctive look that people can easily recognize, and a very a solid propaganda effort with the Nazi insignia emblazoned everywhere, and as a way to get this across. Now, who's supporting Hitler? Well, there are these large groups of unemployed young men that are nationalists and want to see changes. But we're also seeing support for Hitler from the old right wing, the old landowners, those Junkers that want to restore German power, that also want to stop the communists. This is a fear that they're going to lose their territory. Industrialists also, those people behind industry that want to restore the economy and want to, of course, stop communism. And many people in the army are supporting Hitler too, wanting to restore glory to France. So we've got all sorts of groups that, besides just sort of Nazis, young men, sort of nationalists, people caught up with this. But we've got different groups that see benefits to a strong Nazi regime. Now, Germany has a system where there's a president, and the president is elected separate. The Weimar Republic has a president that is elected separate from the Reichstag. And the president chooses the prime minister. The prime minister is the leader of the Reichstag, or someone from the Reichstag who will lead the government. So the president chooses that person, and usually the president chooses the person that has the most support in the Reichstag, which would mean the leader of the largest party in the elections. But in 1932, the Nazis have the most seats in the elections. And so President Hindenburg, the president, does not want to grant this seemingly crazy guy, Hitler, the chancellor position. And so he has a series of chancellors that he appoints that are not from the largest party, not from the Nazi party, and it's hard for those chancellors to govern. And so we've got Brüning and von Papen, both of whom stepped down after a couple months. Then a general is appointed. Schleicher is appointed as chancellor too. All of their chancellorships last only a couple months. And finally, in 1933, in January of that year, Hindenburg has decided that he needs to have a government that can actually can manage the country, especially amidst the Great Depression and amidst this fear of communism. So Hindenburg chooses Hitler to be the new chancellor. Now the thought is that Hitler will be able to be controlled. The Nazis do not have a majority in the Reichstag. Hitler is a political novice. He doesn't really understand how power works. After all, he's never actually been in charge of the government. He's been an outsider, an opponent, campaigning, but he's never actually been, managing a government. And so the idea is that Hitler will be controlled by these more veteran and more knowledgeable elder Germans. But that changes very quickly. There's a fire in the Reichstag building set by a deranged communist in January of 1933. And in the aftermath of this, the Reichstag grants Hitler emergency powers. Actually, the Constitution of the Weimar Republic allows Hitler to have emergency powers in an emergency. And when this deranged communist burns down the Reichstag building, there's this sense that the proletariat is rising up. This is the communist revolution, the revolution of the proletariat, and therefore this is an emergency. They're going to try to take over the government. So Hitler uses this, and the Nazis use this as an excuse for them to increase their power.